to my testimony. I have been honored beyond belief. And sorry I can't do this. I can't read it without crying because I relive it. And it's just so beautiful. Of all people in this world, I can't believe God came to me. But I prayed to him for 2 months while I was so sick to hold me in his arms. And believe it or not, he answered my prayer. It's called In His Loving Arms. And David was the one that I was trying to come up with a really nice name for it. And David suggested it, and I just loved it immediately because that's what I asked him for, was to hold me in his arms. Okay, here we go. Okay. On July 9th, 2011, a neighbor of mine who was out of town asked me to check on his home for damage after a bad wind and rainstorm. I was climbing a retaining wall and lost my balance and fell on the back of my head. Of course, my head landed perfectly on the edge of the red brick wall. I split open the back of my head, and the ER doctor had to place in 8 staples. I seriously felt like a version of Humpty Dumpty with a zipper in the back of my head. I have this quirky sense of humor. During my stay at the Northwest Hospital, they did an MRI and noticed something unusual in the frontal area of my brain. They placed dye in my veins and ran the MRI a second time. The doctor finally returned to give me the results. I had a large aneurysm in the front part of my brain, directly behind my right eye. It finally had explained the migraines and double vision I had been experiencing for the prior 4 months. I had actually thought it was just stress caused from my hectic schedule. The fall I had experienced caused an internal bleed into the back of my head. I had to wait an 8 additional weeks before they could perform brain aneurysm surgery. As I counted down the weeks, the pain in my head became almost unbearable. My blood pressure was difficult to keep under control. Because of the severe pain, I truly spent the majority of my 8 weeks in bed just trying to pray the pain away. I have never felt so sick in my life. This was a real struggle for me, as I have always been very active and independent. For the first time, I had to depend on family and friends to take me to my doctor, weekly doctor appointments, pick up my prescriptions, and to even go grocery shopping. And I have to read it because my memory has been affected a little bit by it. Don't tell Fries that. I prayed several times a day to our Heavenly Father and asked Him to hold me in His arms and to guide my surgeons so they would have an easy time with the surgery. September 6th, 2011. I had to have emergency surgery for the aneurysm before my scheduled surgery date. I had a surgery called endovascular coiling. The doctor said my aneurysm was in the process of rupturing during the surgery, and the stress level within the ER was intense. He also mentioned that if they had waited another hour or 2 to perform the surgery, the outcome would have been very different. My physician, Dr. Andrew Jorke, who performed the surgery, told me that they had to place in a stent that went through a 90-degree turn to turn of my aneurysm. They said they usually struggle to get it placed directly in front of the opening of the aneurysm. All the doctors were amazed as the stent flowed directly in the correct position on the very first attempt. Dr. Gorky said that it was almost like something had guided it into the correct position. Later, I was told that they had expected the surgery to last an additional 4 to 6 hours longer than it actually took. They were surprised at how smoothly the surgery went for the condition and the size of the aneurysm. 21 coils later, it was complete. Now on September 7th, 2011, between the hours of 3 a.m. and 4:30 a.m., something miraculous happened in my intensive care room. Half of my room turned into a cloud. At first I thought I was dying. I was so absolutely scared to death because I didn't see any white light like everybody talks about. Then suddenly I saw two little objects flying from the bottom of this cloud. I thought they were butterflies. I realized they were angels. They had a little dark spot they were carrying in the middle of their wings, which I realized must have been my spirit. I was being flown towards a platform where there was a huge chair. I could see the outline of someone sitting, covered in a long gown and long loose sleeves. At the top of the cloud was a beautiful ornate dome. It had the most brilliant light radiating from underneath. I have never seen anything shine with such brilliance. It was then that the angels placed my spirit in his arms. I realized this was God the Father, and he had answered my prayers. Sorry. He showed me in this vision what he had done for me on September 6th during my surgery. It was written under the platform, "I have missed you." He missed me. I'm so sorry. He spoke to me, but his lips never moved. It didn't dawn on me then that he was communicating to me silently. It was in an arch shape above his head. He wrote, "Believe me when I tell you that today you are with your Father in his kingdom." He also revealed to me that he gave me gifts. He gave me gifts. I remember that I felt like a child, thrilled to death with presents. I told him, "You gave me presents?" I remember I was like a kid. Wow. I thought I was going to open something. What a surprise. I didn't. I could feel the joy he felt in presenting them to me. This time the words he wrote were in a sugar cone shape, and they went down like this, in a sugar cone shape. He said he gave me the gifts of visions, healing, teaching, and TECH, tech. Don't ask me what that is. There were also two other gifts he wrote in a half circle that were above that I wasn't able to read before they disappeared. I'm not sure what kind of tech he gave me. Hopefully it would be technology. I am absolutely terrible when it comes to computers. Then God the Father smiled. You could see the love radiating from his eyes. It was like beams of love coming out. I had never felt so loved in my life. I remember thinking to myself, "Oh, this man loves me. Oh my goodness, he really loves me." I felt like I was crying within. Then suddenly I noticed that he had the most beautiful straight teeth. I was looking and admiring his smile and how beautifully straight his teeth were. As odd as it sounds, I'm always admiring people who have perfectly straight teeth. Crazy, huh? I always feel that they are so very blessed. For those who do not know me personally, I have this quirky sense of humor. So then, as strangely as it sounds, I thought to myself, boy, he has a great orthodontist. All of a sudden, his eyes crinkled up in the corners, as if something hit him funny. Later, when I told my daughter about his eyes crinkling, she said, "Mom, God knows all. He read your mind, and he knew exactly what you were thinking, and probably thought it was funny." I remember I broke down crying, thinking how wonderful to know that God the Father has a great sense of humor, and he has blessed me with his humor. Under the platform, everything disappeared. Then the next thing I saw was everything separated in two equal parts. Okay? On the right side were white angels. On the left side, dark angels. On the right, the angels' bodies would suddenly resemble smoke, and they would move and form words. form the little words. This is what I remember seeing. Love thy neighbor. Forgive thyself as I have forgiven you. Obey my commandments. Read my word, which is the Bible. Do not partake in gossip. Kindness. Kindness is the one word that was repeated over and over and over and went by. Remember my saints. And pious, which means devoutly religious. I had to look it up to make sure I was right on that one. The black angels made me feel drawn to what was written. This is what I remember seeing on that side. Adultery, gluttony, fornication, envy, jealousy, and conceit. I saw a very handsome man enticing me towards him. I was curious to see what it was all about. I felt extremely chilled and have never felt so frightened in my life. I was absolutely scared to death. I then realized it was Satan, and he was pulling me towards him. I looked up at God the Father and I screamed, I want you, God the Father, I want you. All of a sudden, the dark angels disappeared, and they never returned. Thank God. I'm sorry. The scenario then disappeared, and out of the left side of the cloud came a white angel carrying Mother Teresa. I saw Mother Teresa. I remember I said to myself, oh my goodness, it's Mother Teresa. She was so young and absolutely beautiful. She didn't look like leather and all wrinkly like we remember her. She was young and beautiful, like I said. She smiled at me, and I thought she was thrilled to see me. Then the angels flew her towards the brilliant light and disappeared. I also saw St. Anthony and St. Jude. I have prayed in God's name for him to allow them to help me. St. Anthony is the saint for lost and found, and I think we're on a first-name basis. I'm always losing my keys. Then, without warning, the cloud changed again. The next thing I saw was this huge mountain with big, sharp rocks. It was such a rocky terrain that it would have been horribly difficult for anybody to climb. All of a sudden, standing there was Jesus with his crown of thorns and carrying his cross. I felt like I was crying uncontrollably. As I watched him struggle, you could see the terrible pain he was enduring. I told him how sorry I was that he suffered, and he died for me because of my sins. This whole scene here lasted for a while, and then just vanished. Then God the Father said, you have 3 days. And then written below that it says, you have a very difficult decision to make. Then September 10th appeared in my vision, and it was like a ticker tape. The date kept moving similar to ticker tape, going around and around. I was beyond confused. What was going to happen on that day? Would there be another 9/11? Was there something going to happen in our world? Something awful? The idea of not knowing really frightened me. Sometime during this whole experience, I had several nurses enter my intensive care room. I heard them say, Miss Smith, Mary. One young male nurse assigned to me, I won't tell you his name, I know it, that night was making fun of me. I'm sure it seemed strange and possibly funny to him that I was leaning away from the bed and staring over to the left side. One small nurse stood directly in front of me and looking at my face. I could see she was trying to figure out what I was looking at. She had chubby shoulders and arms. I could not see her face. What I did see was God the Father through her face. All I could see the outline was her hair, but I saw God the Father through her face. I thought to myself, I can talk to the nurses later. How often do you get to speak to Almighty God the Father? At the end of this whole experience, I saw 2 little angels flying down. They were flying down towards a rectangle, and it had dots on the outside. There's 5 or 6 dots on the outside of it. All through this whole experience, I kept seeing these dots, wondering to myself, what in the world did those dots represent? It didn't make any sense. Then as the angels flew closer and closer to the dots and the rectangular shape, those dots suddenly were large enough to recognize as heads. Then all of a sudden the heads had necks, and then there were shoulders and arms. My crying intensified. I could see that they were my surgeons. The angels placed the little dark spot, which I now believe to be my spirit, back on the table, and then flew up into the brilliant light. Suddenly the cloud completely disappeared. Saturday, September 10th, 2011, 7 a.m. God the Father woke me. I saw written words in my head, "Do not be afraid, and you will play a role," as well as, "If we are unsuccessful, you will join me in my kingdom." He also wrote something about banished or vanished, but unfortunately it disappeared before I could read it. He told me to sin no more, and I told him I would do whatever he asks and needs of me. I am his to do his will. My life is now his. September 10th, 2011. This is now 11 a.m. My youngest daughter and I laid down to take a nap. At 1 p.m., I was awakened by suddenly by an extraordinary force. It literally pulled me straight up in bed. I was so scared. My daughter woke me and said, "Mom, are you okay?" She was also scared because I sat up in such a rush. I suddenly had this urgency to talk to my mother. My mother is 87. She just now turned 88. I thought to myself, and she's in a care home. Excuse me, I lost my place. She is unaware of the fact that she has Alzheimer's. I thought to myself, maybe this is the day my mother was going to die. My daughter called her, and I talked to her for a while. I told her about seeing Jesus, but because of her Alzheimer's, she suddenly stopped, and she told me that she had to eat lunch. That's okay. My daughter went and picked my mother up from the care home, and she had dinner with my ex-mother-in-law, my 2 daughters, and myself. I wish I could remember this all. After dinner, I asked my mother-in-law if she had the sinner's prayer handy and if we could all say it out loud. We all said it together, and I had my mother repeat it too. I now know exactly what was to happen on September 10th, 2011. I gave my life to God, the Father. He, in return, made sure my mother was ready to enter his kingdom. I feel she must not have been ready before all this transpired. My mother, God the Father loved me so much that he made sure that I would have my mother with me when I enter his kingdom. My mother has lived with me for over 20 years, and I know he knows the love that I have for my mother. He did this for me because he loves me so much. This has been a life-altering experience. My purpose in life is this, to spread this story, his word. He asked me, and I will now glorify his word, glorify his name. I said it wrong. In my vision, I recall most profoundly of all, tell others so they will also believe in me. He also said, it is not your time, but soon. I also recall that I will not struggle anymore. Looking back now, I would have normally been panicked and concerned about trying to decide where I would come up with the finances to pay such a large medical cost. Weeks later, the hospital bill arrived, which covered the majority of the surgery. It was literally paid in full and partially written off, with an exception of my portion of $42 out of $136,000. I really hope that people will listen. I honestly feel something significant will be happening within our world in the very near future. People need to love, honor, and obey his commandments. I have delivered this story to you for a purpose to ask you, are you ready to enter his kingdom? Please pray to him. Read his word. Get to know him as I have learned to get to know him. Be kind to others. Love one another. That's what it's all about. He is giving us another chance to change our ways. God the Father loves each one of us. We are his children. I am currently recovering slowly. I have a few issues with my eyesight, which my doctor has informed me may or may not be temporary. May be temporary or permanent. It's unclear at this time. In retrospect, all that matters is being alive. I have my mother, my daughters, grandchildren, and all my family and friends that I love and love me. This experience has blessed me unimaginably from beginning to end. I have this sense of urgency to spread this story. Please share this story with family and friends. Also, if you know of a group that you would like me to share his story with, please feel free to email me. May God bless you. Mary Smith. My email address is inhislovingarms1@gmail.com. God bless you. I will tell you, since this has happened, I have gone to the doctor for an MRA. It's like an MRI. I have found out that my aneurysm, the filling, it's platinum inside of it, has shrunk and condensed, and the blood is now flowing back into the aneurysm. And I'm okay about it because I will be going through surgery again on Thursday morning at 8:30. If you would all be kind enough to say maybe a little prayer for me, I'd appreciate it. I know I'm in God's hands because he loves me. He's already saved me. And even if I die, you can't even imagine the love that you go to. It is the most wonderful experience I've ever experienced. You think your parents love you? You can't even imagine the love that God has for you. You can't even imagine. I am ready to go at any time he asks, and I'm looking forward to that day. I truthfully am. My surgery, everything will be good because I know that he has something for me still to do. And whatever happens, this aneurysm has brought my children, my family, everyone I love back together with God in the center. This is worth every pain I have gone through. And I want to thank all of you for allowing me to tell this testimony to you. And I hope all of you will at some point see God the Father as I do. I have one more thing that I want to tell you. God the Father does not look like Jesus. He's so cute. He's so cute. He has a little round face and his hair is cut nice. And I thought to myself, boy, he's got a good barber, but I guess it never grows. But he has a really cute face. But he doesn't look like Jesus. When I first looked at him, I kept looking and I thought his face was long. I thought his hair was long. I thought he had darker complexion. And then all of a sudden it dawned on me, that's Jesus, his son. God the Father looks different than his son. And he's so, the love. And you can just see how much he loves you. It's just absolutely unbelievable. God bless you all, and thank you for allowing me to tell this. Just say a little prayer for me. Thank you.